And you knew it was gonna be an episode where they're going to be pulling some emotional damage because there was no music and a lot of wide shots and a lot of shadows. Well, hello and welcome back to You and Idol Precure episode 28, and I was not prepared to cry this episode. I knew that this was going to be an episode revolving around her dog, but I didn't expect us to come in with a whirlwind of sadness. Like, this episode started off with a lot of emotions, and I'm like, leave that in Wonderful Precure. Leave that in Wonderful Precure. We did this last year. Don't be doing this to me now. I cannot. And literally, it came out a day after I spent a whole day with my grandparents. I cried harder than I should have. I cried very hard with this episode. And you knew it was gonna be an episode where they're going to be pulling some emotional damage because there was no music and a lot of wide shots and a lot of shadows. Like, artistically, they said, we're gonna play with you this episode. They locked in. But starting off strong, it's so funny to me how much the family has just, like, kind of adopted Tanaka as just, like, an uncle who helps out. He has not directly interacted with her family much, but they're like, yeah, drive my daughter and her friends out to the countryside to go visit her grandfather off hours of work. And he's like, yeah, don't worry guys, I got a license just in case something like this happened. It's crazy. It's a little kooky crazy. But Tanaka's a member of the family at this point. And then the show does this bit where Uta explains all the things that they can do while they're out in the countryside visiting her grandfather. She's like, we can eat vegetables. We can eat watermelon. And it does this little chomp graphic every time. The third thing she lists are squirrels, and I thought she was gonna eat them. I was like, Uta, be so for real. We're not about to eat a bunch of squirrels. Like, the joke nearly got me. I was like, whoa, what do we do in the countryside of Japan? Let's not eat these dancing squirrels. Nonetheless, we get to meet her grandfather, who hasn't seen them for a hot minute, and we get the reveal Kyu-chan, her dog, was previously owned by her grandmother and now takes care of the family. I think it was done before where Kyu-chan has like a little monologue for himself, but he definitely does it obviously a lot more in this episode, and I'm like, huh, that voice is a little familiar. Might have heard that voice before. But first things first, for our little vacation, they pay respects to her grandmother. And again, we've got the whole family. We got the whole group going. And we have this one photo that comes up a couple of times of them in front of these 3 interesting trees that have formed around here. And just establish that Uta was very, very close to her grandmother. But that does not stop us from getting our summer montage in. For this is the episode at which they go and eat the vegetables, as they said. They had fun with watermelon. They did the hose. Squirrels were in there maybe. The typical summer montage, as we all remember for our summer experiences. And Kyu-chan then does something that he has always done, which is chew on Uta's grandmother's slipper. And the mood lighting gets moody. Like, again, you may not notice it often, but Precure only really uses shadows, especially shadows that cover the entire character, or 3/4 of a character, when they're being moody. Otherwise, the characters are just very brightly lit all of the time. And honestly, when anime use shadows to their advantage, you know it's serious. You know that, like, the people working on this are being intentional with the shadows, whereas normally it's like, you know, if a person's arm is here, then a shadow would be cast. That's the amount of effort they usually put in with the shadows. So in this moment of tenseness, just visually, not yet emotionally, we do have the drop where her grandfather is like, hey, I'm getting up in age. While I'm still healthy enough to walk around and lift things, let's go through your grandmother's possessions and sort out where they're gonna go and how we're gonna handle it, you know, getting ready for the end. And this is where I started to fall apart. I was like, oh, I've been there. I've done that. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. But that's great because we cut over to Chokiren, who is suffering from loneliness. We're finally actually getting to see a bit more of her facade crack. as we learn that she did enjoy having the guys around. She did enjoy their company, and now she's kind of miserable and decides to go on a vacation for herself. In the meantime, Uta has become depressed. She is not happy about the idea of remembering that her grandmother is gone and the fact that her grandfather is also soon to not be of this world as well. And Kyu-chan is like, that's no good. I don't like her being, and I'm gonna get the word wrong. It's like shobombobon, which is this word that they don't quite explain yet. And he's like, I can't be having Uta feeling that particular way. So he's off to go to the tree spot that was in the photo earlier and find something where I'm like, okay, so they left a time capsule. Clearly there was some kind of time capsule that's left here, but also shout out to this thing being like dug as deeply as possible. Also, everybody just showed up with travels, like Kokoro and Nana were just like, yeah, we got some troubles. We'll also just start digging. I'm like, where did did you know? No, again, no one can hear this dog. Like, even the fairies aren't capable of communicating with the dog. I'm like, how'd you know? Anyways, Puridun activates into dog mode as well and starts digging. And we initially have Metadon cheer her on, but later Metadon's like, girl, why are you getting so messy? For what? And then, of course, we have the seed sown for the next artwork we're about to deal with, where Puridun insists that, like, you know, I'm doing it for a friend. This is what you would do for a friend. Friendship, friendship, friendship. Metadon's like, I don't get that. I don't get that at all. But don't worry, we'll deal with that later. In the meantime, Uta has been going in her grandmother's room and having all of these memories. She remembers this conversation she had with her grandmother, and her grandmother trying to coax her into the idea that she's not going to be around forever and they need to make the most of what they have left. And Uta hits this roadblock where she vaguely remembers a particular incident happening with her grandmother, but she's also sad because she can't fully remember it, and she's getting upset that she's losing these precious memories. And we see in this little flashback scene, we're like, a spoon with a ribbon on it. I've never seen that before. I kind of wish they didn't show this before they opened the time capsule, because I was like, I bet the spoon with the ribbon on it's going to be in the time capsule. I think I know what's in the time capsule now. I feel like they just dropped this a little too soon. But nonetheless, we do ultimately retrieve the time capsule. And now we've got to get it back to Uta. But we can't be doing that before we get into our boss fight of the episode. And of course, Kyu-chan is going to be our victim. Uta ultimately fell asleep in her grandmother's room and awakens to see that nobody's there anymore because they've gone off on their treasure hunting journey. And she is off to find them. And one thing that's been kind of interesting up until this point in the episode is that Uta's had a very strong front going. She's been pretty at peace with the fact that her grandmother had passed away, so I assumed it happened it happened a couple years prior to the events of what's going on now. But I'm like, I wonder if she, like, did not handle it well back then. And it's true, she didn't. Her memory with her grandmother and her facing reality as a child, and honestly, I'm gonna be so for real with you, as an adult, it does not get easier. She does not handle it well, and she's mighty sad, as one does. But trying to make the most of the situation, Uta, I assume, makes the very first spoon with a ribbon, and does so to sing a little song to her grandmother to talk about how much she loves her, and it's very, very sweet. Uta, opening the time capsule now as Idol, sees all this and finds the courage to finish the fight. Now, in regards to the fight, it's actually a pretty, like, decent one. It's longish. I will say it bums me out, as I have always stated. All of the Sakuga really went to the monster. We see a lot of good Sakuga with it moving around in the fight. And the girls, like, throw some fun punches and everything, but there's not any, like, particularly juicy Sakuga moment for them. A lot of them are, like, when the models are incredibly tiny. But it is a step up from what we normally get. The characters actually do move around, for the most part. It's just the monster gets the most love, because of course he does. And here's just a look at the time capsule with our beloved spoon in it. And I guess candy too, but like, no one cares about the candy, it's just about the spoon. Anyways, right before we go into our final attack, which is going to be a solo attack with Idol, which honestly is perfect timing. It makes sense that last episode was Trio Dreams, because there's so much more meaning for her to sing her song, which is also just like her little melody that she does spontaneously throughout the show. So the easing into this was perfect. And we save the day, as we of course do. Uta seems to have now made peace with, like, her conflict from earlier. And she's glad that she still has the memories. And she has changed the Shobobobon to Kira Kilala. These words are going to be the death of me. But we also learned that these terms are things that Uta had come up with. They're just childish terms for the most part that obviously seem to have some magic attached to them. I wonder if the shabababone concept will come back. I don't know if that's going to be like a villain thing later down the line just to keep things circular, or if this is just a silly Billy thing that she did this episode. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if that gets revisited. But we now know what that means and where that came from. And we get to just see how much Uta's grandmother meant to her and how this ended up being debatably the inciting incident for her doing this whole melody sing bit that she does throughout the show. And we get to see that Kyu-chan is happy that he has fulfilled his duty to Uta, and that having been her grandmother's dog and now Uta's dog is the perfect call to make. And then we end the episode on a heartwarming bit where her family's like, we have to do our 58th, so the singing bit's been a thing, karaoke with the family. I like that Tanaka, again, is just in there. He's just going along with it. He's a member of the family. Uta sings her first grandma melody to begin the karaoke. And we see that she's also satisfied the grandfather and his hope that Uta, is able to move on, live her life, and make peace with everything. I keep saying make peace a lot, but that's really just what's been going on this whole episode. And that everybody's happy with the choices that they've made. And then again, sowing more of those seeds of Puidun be like, yeah, part of the family, even though I'm a stuffed animal under the table. And Meladon's like, but you're my only friend. I'm sure that's not going to be relevant quite literally the next episode. But then we have the reveal at the end of the episode as they're leaving that Uta's like, hey, by the way, Grandpa, whenever you feel like doing the room, let's do it. I was like, girl, you didn't do it the entire time. Like, I get that you were having an emotional moment, but like now you have to come back and do it. I assumed your grandfather wanted to do it this weekend, like with you up here. It's not like you can drive of your own volition. I guess you do have Tanaka, but like, ma'am, you should have emptied the room. I was hoping she'd empty the room by the end of the like time that they're here, because I assumed that it was over the course of like maybe a couple nights or something. I don't know, maybe they were only here for a day trip, but I was like, girl, you should have dealt with that room. But whatever, this is her character development, is that she's ready to clean it up. Okay. And Kyu-chan is happy. All in a day's work. And then we have a moment in the car where it sounds like Kyu-chan's inner monologue is heard out loud, and I'm like, this isn't wonderful Precure. And no, it's not. Uta cannot hear what he's saying any more than anybody else can. The inner monologue stays inner monologued. And I will say, for like what this episode ended up being, now that we are at its conclusion, I'm glad the way they handled it, because at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of this episode was revisiting stuff that I think the team has just learned how to do from Wonderful Precure. We have another like dog-centric episode. I think one of the things that's pretty cool that the animators have gotten good at from the last season is creating like emotional expressions with a dog. Quadrupeds in general are kind of hard to draw, and then obviously a dog, you have to convey a lot through facial expressions, and you have to get used to drawing a dog's facial expressions and not a human's facial expressions. Kyu-chan, this entire episode, was quite impressive in the way that he was able to convey different emotions with the way they drew his face, the way he flopped his ears. Like, it was a good time. I do think, like, the sad dog vibes and the connections there and all that was a little bit Wonderful Precure. But I'm glad that, again, they didn't do anything that they really did last season, because I do not like it when the show is repetitive, where it's like, hey, we did that last season. We did a good job last season. We do not need to repeat it. And Precure has had a bad history of recycling plotlines, but recycling plotlines back-to-back in seasons. Certain guitar plotline was used twice between Kira Kira and Hagato, and I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. But for the most part, this was good. It just, again, it felt like an episode where they were using the building blocks that they had taken from the previous season. I think they did a really good job with the sound design for this episode, knowing when to use music, knowing when not to use music, as well as shadows. Like here, this is an example of a scene where they're not using any kind of dramatic shadowing. It's just like the normal intuitive shadows, versus, again, all of the emotional sequences in this episode had really good dynamic shadows. I will say I don't think this episode got as emotional as the ones in Wonderful did, but at the same time, I feel like you can't, it's like, it's hard to try to pull punches like the way Wonderful did, because you don't want to sit there and make the kids too depressed. But I felt like it was a good emotional episode to put in here. I think it was also really good for Uta. Like, I feel like a lot of the Uta specific episodes have been kind of just meh for me for the most part. I liked this one, and I think they did a good job at sowing seeds earlier in the show to make this make sense. Like, it doesn't, like, you could take this episode out and we would be fine. I don't think the whole grandma backstory was as strong as something like Delicious Party. But having the reveal that the spoon thing was something that started with her grandmother and that her dog is connected to her grandmother, and making the dog relevant, because there's a lot of seasons outside of Wonderful Precure where they're just pets in the show and the pets kind of do nothing. They're just there and you forget that they have pets. Same with siblings. I think pets and siblings are like the #1 most forgettable thing in other Precure seasons. So having an episode to spotlight that, hey, we decided to write a dog into the story and the dog's still here was cute. It played very well into the backstory. Overall, I think it was a rather strong character episode. It's sweet. It didn't do too much team building, but I do think it's bridging pretty well into the Metadon plotline that we're about to have, where Metadon's kind of waking up with the fact that, like, she doesn't have friends outside of Pootidoon. And that's gonna matter for her. I can't tell if it was, 2 episodes or 3 episodes that are all gonna be Metadon focused. We'll see. As well as a heads up, speaking on the next episode. Mine will be late because I will be at an anime convention next weekend. So when I am back in town, the next episode will come out. So there'll be a little bit of a delay there, but then we should be back onto normal scheduling. I take it back. I lied. We will not be on back. I will be celebrating Labor Day with my family, and then we'll be back on normal scheduling come fall. So until then, I will see you next time. Bye bye!